That was crazy, right? Like,
and then people are mad at the big head girl that, what's her fucking name? That she looks like a mothership alien. The Snow White they got, the Puerto Rican Snow White.
Jesus Christ, I did not know where you were going there.
You can kiss me!
Joe is joining today. Grab your popcorn, hide your wallets, and prepare to witness the cinematic catastrophe of the century. Because today, we're diving headfirst into the glorious train wreck that is Disney's live-action Snow White remake, or as some are calling it, how to blow $250 million and get roasted by Joe Rogan for free. That's right. Our boy Joe is back, and this time, he's setting his sights on the House of Mouse for what can only be described as a masterclass in financial mismanagement. But before we unpack this box office faceplant, let's take a moment to appreciate the beautifully chaotic mess that led to it. First, Disney decides to remake Snow White, because obviously, a nearly 100-year-old animated classic just had to get a soulless, CGI-infested facelift and a script rewrite from someone who probably never liked fairy tales in the first place.
Rachel Zegler!
Then they cast Rachel Zegler, who swiftly transformed into the internet's least favorite Disney princess, after roasting the original Snow White harder than a Thanksgiving turkey. Instead of honoring the film that launched Disney's empire, she basically said, yeah, that 1937 classic. Outdated, creepy, never liked it. Nothing says, I respect the legacy like publicly dragging the source material you're being paid millions to remake.
Yeah, Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about your version of Snow White?
Yeah, I mean, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age.
Add to that some dodgy CGI dwarves and a script so aggressively woke. It could put a Starbucks barista into a coma, and voila, you've got yourself a certified cinematic disaster. Let's be real, Disney should have seen this faceplant coming from a mile away. But instead of owning the mess, they tossed Rachel Zegler under the bus faster than you can say box office bomb, acting like she was the sole reason this multi-million-dollar meltdown happened. Joe Rogan? Oh, he wasn't having it. He straight up suggested the DOJ should investigate where that $250 million went. And honestly, at this point, even Monopoly money has better financial oversight than Disney. Rogan watched a clip of the film's CGI and hit us with a collective, oh wow, that does look bad. And when Joe Rogan, a man who's willingly guzzled elk blood on his podcast, thinks your movie is gross, you've officially reached a new level of cinematic shame.
How
She's
about
a kid, right?
she didn't write that script though, right? And I don't think she made the no dwarves decisions. That was Sir Peter Dinklage. I mean, I'm sure she sucks, but she is very young.
Wait, what's her name? Rachel?
Yeah, so now if you notice the spin on it, they're putting it all on her.
Okay, but let's be fair for a second. Rachel Zegler didn't write the script. She didn't greenlight the no dwarves decision. That was Sir Peter Dinklage crusading against what he called outdated tropes. Sure, Rachel didn't help herself with the PR disasters, but she's also, 22? A young actress thrown into the spotlight, hand in a flaming hot mess, and told to smile for the camera. Now, if you've noticed the sudden spin, Disney's PR machine is working overtime to pin it all on her. But let's talk about that scapegoat strategy. Instead of owning up to the real problems, like horrible writing, tone-deaf creative choices, and enough controversy to fuel a full season of reality TV, Disney decided to toss Rachel under the proverbial carriage and hope no one noticed the castle was already on fire.
Garden of Eden? Well, yes. Pause up.
Yes, Rachel Zegler made some cringy comments. Yes, she jumped on the original Snow White and had all the on-screen charisma of a wet sponge during interviews. But let's be real, did she personally greenlight a $250 million budget for a film that looks like it was rendered on a 2003 Dell laptop? Absolutely not. That honor belongs to the brilliant minds running Disney into the ground. And this whole situation, it reeks of corporate damage control at its absolute worst. Instead of taking responsibility for the disaster they created, Disney's executives threw Zegler to the wolves, hoping the internet's collective rage would distract from the fact that they basically lit $250 million on fire. It's the classic blame the actor maneuver, as if she somehow single-handedly tanked a movie that was already rotting from the inside out. Because let's be honest, the this wasn't just about a bad casting choice or a few awkward interviews. This was a full-blown, slow-motion train wreck. Between the soulless CGI, the baffling creative choices, and the sheer audacity of thinking audiences wouldn't notice, this movie was doomed long before Zegler ever opened her mouth.
I needed a job. I'm being so serious.
And speaking of bad decisions, let's talk about that budget. $250 million. That's more than The Dark Knight, more than Inception. And yet somehow, Disney managed to crank out a movie that looks like a rejected cutscene from a PlayStation 2 game. Where did all that money go? Did someone accidentally wire half of it to the wrong account? Was it embezzled into funding a secret underground Disneyland for executives only? Because it sure as hell didn't end up on screen. Even Joe Rogan, hardly the poster child for film criticism, couldn't help but react to the absurdity. Watching him react to the CGI was, frankly, more entertaining than the actual movie. You know it's bad when a guy who spends half his podcast talking about aliens and ayahuasca sounds more grounded in reality than the people running a billion-dollar entertainment empire. And yet, here we are. At the end of the day, Disney played themselves. They thought they could skate by on brand recognition alone, completely forgetting that audiences, yes, even Disney audiences, can smell a steaming pile of garbage from a mile away. But instead of owning up to the failure, they're pointing fingers, hoping the internet mob locks onto Zegler, while they quietly sweep this $250 million catastrophe under the magic carpet. But let's be honest, no amount of PR spin can hide the fact that they thought this was worth the same budget as Avengers Endgame. If that's not a sign that Disney is losing its magic, I don't know what is.
It's hard to do what we do and to make movies, but I love it so much because I get to see you guys.
And speaking of misplaced priorities, let's do a quick financial reality check. Imagine having $250 million to play with. You could buy a private island, build a theme park, or fund an indie studio that actually makes good movies. But Disney, they blew it on a film that makes the live-action Mario Bros. Movie look like Oscar bait. Meanwhile, Hollywood execs are scratching their heads, wondering why audiences won't fork over $15 for yet another soulless, nostalgia bait remake. Spoiler alert. It's because nobody asked for this. Now, I know what you're thinking. But what about the Seven Dwarfs? Surely they're the heart of the story. Wrong. Peter Dinklage decided the dwarves were problematic because apparently magical fantasy creatures in a fairy tale are now a social issue. So what did Disney do? Did they hire actual little people for the roles? Of course not. They went full CGI nightmare fuel, and it shows. Joe Rogan's reaction. It doesn't look real at all. Which is his polite way of saying, this looks like hot garbage. At this point, you might be asking yourself, wait, what does Doge have to do with any of this? Great question. Nobody knows. But honestly, Doge investigating Disney might not be the worst idea. At least they provide better financial oversight than whatever circus clowns were running this production. And hey, while we're at it, maybe Doge can audit all of Disney's remakes, just to confirm what we already suspect. They've officially run out of original ideas.
I'm a narcissist. I don't know.
And speaking of original ideas, here's one. If you're enjoying this absolutely unhinged takedown of Disney's latest disaster, maybe, just maybe, consider hitting that subscribe button. Not saying you have to, but let's be honest, your YouTube feed is already 90% clickbait, and at least here, we serve the drama hot with a generous side of sarcasm. So go ahead, hit that button, or don't. But if you don't, just know that somewhere, a Disney executive is greenlighting another unnecessary reboot. And that's on you. All right, back to the madness. So not only did Disney blame Zegler for the film's flop, they completely ignored the fact that their own executives were micromanaging this thing, like it was a nuclear launch sequence. Jonah Platt, yes, the son of the film's producer, publicly said that his dad had to fly across the country just to tell Zegler to zip it, after she tweeted "Free Palestine" during promo season. Because nothing screams smooth PR strategy like putting out social media fires mid-air on a $250 million sinking ship.
producer of this movie flew out to actually meet with Rachel Zegler in person to tell her to stop. The thing that Rachel Zegler, I think, did the worst was a number of social media statements basically saying that she did not want half the country to watch her own movie.
Now, whether you agree with Rachel Zegler's politics or not, you've got to admit, it's hilarious that this was the hill Disney chose to die on. They were totally fine with her slamming the original Snow White, dropping bizarre feminist hot takes that made zero sense, and acting like she was way too cool to play the role that launched 1,000 childhoods. But the second she tweets something political, whoa there, Missy, that's a step too far. Make it make sense, Disney, please. And while we're already in the Twilight Zone, let's take a moment to talk numbers. This movie tanked harder than the Titanic, $43 million on opening weekend. Then it nosedived with a 66% drop. That's got to be a record, right? And remember, they spent $250 million on this thing. You'd think some of that cash would go toward, I don't know, making a good movie? But nope. That money probably went into corporate retreats, where executives brainstormed new ways to assassinate our childhoods. Oh, and the modernized Snow White storyline? Gone are the romance, the whimsy, the charm. You know, the actual heart of the original. Instead, we get a strong, independent woman victim, leading a vague revolution. Against what, exactly? Unclear. Cool, I guess. Except, literally nobody asked for that. What people did want was simple. A faithful adaptation, gorgeous visuals, solid storytelling, and yes, actual dwarves. But hey, what do we know? We're just the people who pay for the tickets. And if you've made it this far, congrats. You've survived the secondhand embarrassment of watching Disney fumble harder than a quarterback with buttered gloves. And since you clearly enjoy watching Hollywood take an L, why not stick around for more? Seriously, hit that subscribe button. We won't promise you riches, wisdom, or inner peace, but we will keep you entertained. And honestly, that's already more than whatever Disney's selling these days. Final thoughts? Disney tried to make Rachel Zegler the fall girl, but let's be real. This production was cursed from day one. Bad writing, worse CGI, and a desperate attempt to be modern left this remake DOA. And while Joe Rogan may have been joking about Doge investigating this mess, at this point, that might be the best idea Hollywood's had in years. So in conclusion, Disney, maybe next time, instead of butchering another classic, just don't. And to all of you watching, if you laughed, cringed, or just enjoyed the chaos, you know what to do. Hit that like button. Subscribe, or don't. But if you don't, just remember, somewhere out there, a Hollywood exec is pitching Bambi, the gritty reboot. And that's on you. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.